What if Tank Davis, who can punch, who is a hell of a fighter, who is the top 10 pound-for-pound fighter, what if he lands a punch on this bigger guy's chin, right, who's not a professional fighter? What happened?
They do it for real. Tank is highly capable of taking Jake Paul out. So the exhibitions that I like to see are ones that either I can mythically look at and say, wow, well, if he would have did that back when he was 10 years younger or 8 years or 12 years ago, he would have beat him. You understand me? Because we know boxing.
If he hits you because he's so accurate, he's gonna drop you or could put you to sleep. But like not necessarily power punch. Like Edwin De Los Santos is a hard hitter. He would even have a hard time with rollies. I'm not even kidding.
Boxing legends explain why Gervonta Davis will destroy Jake Paul in just 3 rounds. Gareth A. Davis points out that Gervonta stayed calm during the press conference and face-off, showing little reaction to Jake Paul's comments about his height. He says Tank looked a bit unsure at first, almost like he was forced into this fight, but once the bell rings he expects Tank to unleash powerful combinations that will completely shut Jake down.
About the presser. He reminded me of a northern football fan being dragged to a shopping centre on a Saturday afternoon rather than being allowed to go to his favourite Liverpool seat. You'll relate to that, won't you? It was almost like he'd been shackled and dragged there against his will. Even when they faced off, it was as if Jake Paul had a bad smell about him or something. He didn't want to get near Jake Paul. He didn't want to. I'm just going to plug this in as well. I just realised it's not plugged in. It was almost as if he didn't want to indulge anyone at all. Like he'd signed up against his will, and then like he'd been signed up against his will. The agents and his manager and his handler had dragged him there without briefing him on what was going on and where it would be and what time it would take place. And there was this oaf in his mind standing there in front of him, this big oaf who kept posturing, and it just didn't do anything to him. I wondered at one point whether he was going to burst out with a combination of punches or something and just drop Jake Paul, who was being, measuring him up and going down to his height, and it was all very peculiar in my view. Like he really.
Ryan Garcia openly expresses his frustration over the matchup between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis, calling it a complete insult to boxing. He highlights the unfair size and weight difference, saying it's not a real contest but a show designed to grab attention instead of respect. Ryan insists that boxing should be about skill, legacy, and fairness, not social media hype. He feels it's wrong to see a smaller fighter like Gervonta go up against a naturally bigger opponent like Jake, especially when it's promoted as an even fight. According to Ryan, this kind of event sends the wrong message to young fighters, that fame and money matter more than discipline and honor. For him, this isn't just about entertainment, it's about protecting the integrity of boxing, and he sees this fight as an insult to the sport he's devoted his life to.
Mainly Jake's, and we're not falling for the Disney Channel bit no more. We're not falling for you're not a fighter no more. We're not falling for that. You're ranked as a cruiserweight and you're out here trying to fight a lightweight, and then on top of it you were just talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. That doesn't make no sense. And I just felt like it was a disgrace to boxing, and kind of it was not a good move by Jake Paul. I understand people saying, Gervonta got to go get his money, blah, blah, blah. But, we're not talking about that shit. We're talking about the sport, bro. We're not talking about, oh, you got to get that money, bro. Yeah, but everybody's open to criticism. That's the whole point of this media shit. Right. That's why they talk about basketball players. They don't talk about, well, LeBron's making too much. Nobody cares, bro. If LeBron's missing the shot, he's missing the fucking shot. So, at the end of the day, bro, I just thought it was a disgrace to the sport. Because on one end, you got the casuals, right? The casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Yeah. And if Gervonta Davis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're going to think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter. Yeah. And to me, that's just, it's tricking the public, and it's kind of bullshit, bro, at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if Gervonta was Jake Paul's size, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. There probably wouldn't even be a fight. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I just think that It's a disgrace to boxing.
Well, we got to play devil's advocate because people were saying, well, Ryan, you called out Jake Paul before too, so how would you say that? What do you have to say to the people that were saying that to
Well,
you?
I'm way bigger than Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis is 5'4", and his last fight was at 133. My last fight was 147, and I walk around 170. So, I mean, 170 to 190, whatever, however big is not too much difference. But you got Gervonta Davis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, like, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight. Nobody was complaining when Jake Paul was fighting Julio Cesar Chavez.
Right.
Nobody was complaining when he's fighting Anthony Joshua. And I still think Jake Paul's a cool dude. But shit, he's calling me out on my shit. I'm gonna call him out on his shit, bro. That's a fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like the Mike Tyson low key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But
Yeah.
he was 60 years old. I mean,
Right.
what the f we talking about?
Sean Porter views this matchup from a veteran's perspective, calling it a sign of where boxing is headed. He believes today's fighters care more about quick money than building lasting greatness. In his opinion, Gervonta Davis has become part of the group chasing paydays instead of legacy fights. Porter explains that true legends once risked everything for glory, taking on the best to secure their place in history. Now, he says, most fighters focus on brand deals, social media fame, and short-term profit. To him, Tank's choice to face Jake Paul instead of seeking real challenges shows how much the sport's priorities have shifted. Porter admits Tank is incredibly talented but feels he's wasting that talent on publicity fights instead of career-defining battles. He isn't just criticizing Tank, he's calling out the growing trend of money-driven matchups that he believes are slowly draining the soul out of boxing.
About it, what to really say about it, how I don't really, I've only been asked this when it's presented to me. That's when I think about it, and I can't really come up with a good answer for it. In a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to me. Of course, we know the size differential, and the list goes on from there. I don't know, man. I think we're entering a generation now, or a phase now where fighters, I don't know if it's fighters, I don't know if he doesn't care about the legacy, or if he feels like this fight doesn't matter, I'll get back to the legacy. I just don't know. This is truly it's not a legacy fight, but of course it is a generational money fight.
Many analysts believe the issue isn't just with the fighters but also with the audience. They argue that modern fans are fueling the circus, giving attention to hype instead of skill. Real technical bouts between top-level boxers often get ignored, while exhibition and influencer fights dominate the spotlight. According to them, social media's short attention span has shifted boxing's focus from talent to drama. The analysts explain that the Jake Paul phenomenon isn't entirely his fault. It's the audience rewarding chaos over craftsmanship. When fans only tune in for trash talk and viral moments, real fighters lose motivation to take risks for respect. They also point out that this trend has blurred the line between genuine competition and entertainment. True champions fight for legacy and titles, while influencers fight for clicks. As long as fans keep supporting these events, the balance will continue to favor spectacle over sport.
For one, you have good fights where I'm not talking about these type of fights, crossover type of fight, former Disney guy, influencer stuff, not. And Jake Paul has really promoted himself and acquitted himself to the point where he's kind of a boxer. Now, he hasn't fought the top names, I get it, blah, blah, blah. But he's doing his thing. He's training like a boxer. He's not like taking it lightly, like streaming and then working on his YouTube more than he's working on his boxing. It is what it is, right? But beyond that, let's keep it going. I told you I'm about to really get unpacked. Subscribe to the channel. The reality is, the reason why I'm saying I blame you, the fans, is because we've had some very good fights, like David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, whatever. I'm talking in the last 5-10 years, right? Very good fights, all boxing. So not talking influencer or any type of crossover fight, right? Good fights. And then you got boxing fans in a niche sport who didn't further the exposure by advertising or buying the fight, mostly buying the fight with piracy and whatnot. So now we're at a point in this society where these companies, they're like, all right, they see the piracy is a problem. Now they're looking for sure shot must win type of scenarios. That's why we're getting these fights that some people, purists and diehards, are calling wonky fights.
One major concern among boxing professionals is the huge size gap between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Jake naturally competes around cruiserweight, while Tank's true division is lightweight. Experts emphasize that no matter how skilled Davis is, the physical realities of boxing can't be ignored. Reach, weight, and power all make a difference. They warn that matching Tank against Jake in a sanctioned fight would be both unfair and risky. Jake can take punches from much bigger opponents and keep fighting, while Tank, known for his knockout power, would have to get inside against someone taller and stronger. Critics argue that a matchup like this shouldn't even be approved under proper boxing regulations. On paper, Jake holds the advantage in size, while Tank has the edge in speed and skill. But that imbalance makes the fight highly controversial. For traditional boxing fans, it's another sign that the sport's rules are being bent for the sake of entertainment.
A massively powerful fighter at 135 pounds, but his punch output is among the lowest in the sport. Jake has a pretty decent punch output for a guy that's 200 pounds. He hits hard in his own right, but doesn't have the skill and capabilities anywhere close, or the feet, or the hand speed, or the eyes anywhere close to Tank Davis, but has a power that Tank Davis has probably never felt, but just because Jake is naturally 70 pounds bigger than him, right? So 10 rounds, 3 minutes, who starts to show the wear and tear first? I know if Tank touches him on the jaw, it's probably not going to feel like roses, regardless if he's 135 or 150 or whatever he steps in that night. He's still a Tank and has still put guys down as he's gone up in weight, but Jake is just so much bigger. How much will the power that Tank
Showbiz the Adult takes a closer look at Gervonta Davis's legacy and how vulnerable it has become. He points out that Tank's career has often been criticized for lacking real high-risk challenges, and the upcoming fight with Jake Paul could hurt his credibility even more. Showbiz highlights Lamont Roach's strong performance against Pitbull Cruz, one of Tank's top past opponents, as proof of how competitive the division truly is. If Roach handles Pitbull better than Tank did, it raises questions about Tank's dominance. He explains that boxing is all about perception. If someone beats your toughest rival more convincingly, fans start to doubt your greatness. That's why he believes Tank needs to be strategic about the fights he takes. Facing Jake Paul might bring in big money, but it does nothing to boost his legacy. Instead, it gives critics another reason to question his drive and commitment to greatness.
I don't even know how you cannot have him better than Tank. People question Tank's resume anyway. But if you make Tank take a knee and they don't call it a knockdown and you still get the draw, you beat him. You beat Tank. And then you dominate Pitbull, one of Tank's best wins. Bro, you better than him. The resume, listen, bro. I didn't say greater. I said better. The resume means politics. Ryan was just saying it. Lamont Roach could have been on a back burner and they were holding him back, so he had to go down to 130, doing the grunt work like Marvelous Marvin Hagler, waiting for his time to shine. Resume, if the business chooses you, they can move you along right. He actually get cherry picked and he best Tank, and then he stops Pitbull. He's better. Y'all know how the business of boxing works. You just saw Terrence Crawford actually be the best fighter we've seen in decades. The man, Terrence Crawford, can arguably be better than Floyd Mayweather. Y'all saw the business shitting for all of his career, practically all of his career. And you see that he's better than Nello? What a surprise. We've been sitting, a guy coming from lightweight can beat Nello at...
Lamont Roach adds more fuel to the controversy by exposing the business issues happening behind the scenes. He claims that Tank was contractually expected to go for a rematch, likely against a top contender, but instead chose to face Jake Paul for a bigger payday. Roach believes this decision shows that Tank's focus has shifted from proving himself to chasing easy money. He stresses that true fighters honor their contracts and their word because the integrity of boxing depends on it. Roach acknowledges Tank's elite talent and killer instinct, but says this choice raises doubts about his discipline. Many fans feel disappointed. as the rematch could have been Tank's chance to silence his critics and prove his dominance once again.
Was in the way. Holler at me. Tell me you want to fight Jake. Tell me you got a bag coming up. All right, boom. Like,
Go do
it's a way to handle that. We have a contract. You cannot breach a contract and think shit just gonna be sweet. You can't. You can't do that.
Right.
We have a contract. So it's not like this wasn't supposed to happen or whatever the case may be. He just went and took the Jake route. We had a signed contract to fight. So him breaching the contract is, if y'all put yourself in my shoes, you gotta think, I'm looking forward to fighting and getting paid. I'm looking forward to fighting and winning so I could be two-time world champ. Me. I'm in training for a fight to be a champion in another weight class and for me to be crowned champion twice in my career. And this just goes and then end up announcing another fight. Put yourself in my shoes.
Did you find out just like the rest of us did?
Kinda. I was on the fence because they didn't announce. They was like, all right, we're going to announce. All right, we're going to announce. All right, they're going to announce. Every week. All right, we're going to announce the fight.
Max Kellerman adds a balanced perspective, acknowledging Jake Paul's huge influence on the business side of boxing. He points out that no modern fighter sells tickets or creates buzz the way Jake does. That's why so many professionals accept his challenges, not out of respect for his skill, but because they can't compete with his reach and marketing power. Jake has become boxing's biggest promotional force, and even established champions want a share of that spotlight. Kellerman and Paulie Malignaggi also discuss whether Tank's knockout power will be as effective against a bigger opponent. They agree that Tank's explosiveness is world-class, but they both question whether he can overcome the size disadvantage.
There's a lot of limited knockout artists, though, man.
He's one of the least active punchers in the game with the highest knockout percentage of current heavyweight.
But if he was a real knockout artist, if he was a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best of the best. Felix Trinidad was a knockout artist. He was knocking out the best of the best. If you're a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best and show us how he smokes them. But the way
Paulie,
we did when Felix Trinidad was doing it. You know, the way they did when Mike Tyson was doing it in his prime. Say what you want about the Mike Tyson era. He knocked out everyone from 1986 to 1989. Everyone got knocked out. Everyone.
Well, by your standard, you could say that Tyson was to a degree manufactured.
No,
and
because
Teddy
he fought everyone that was there. Everyone that was there at that time fought.
Teddy Atlas will 100% agree with this
with the expense of
Witherspoon. That were afraid of him.
With the exception of Witherspoon. No, but they all, doesn't matter. He knocked them all out. There was nobody you could say in that era except maybe Witherspoon, who I contract issues with King at the time. Except for Witherspoon, there is nobody Tyson didn't fight in.
Eddie Griffin closes the discussion with a sharp and skeptical take, arguing that Jake Paul's fights are more about entertainment than real competition. He calls them Hollywood fights, claiming that results are often influenced to protect profits rather than showcase true sportsmanship. Griffin points to the Mike Tyson exhibition as an example, saying Tyson could have ended it whenever he wanted but didn't, because that wasn't part of the plan. He believes the same thing might happen in the Tank fight, a show built for spectacle, not authenticity. If Jake gets knocked out too early, the hype ends. If he lasts longer, the money grows. According to Griffin, both sides understand the financial stakes, which makes the fight feel more like a production than a genuine rivalry. Still, he admits fans will watch regardless, proving that in today's boxing world, controversy sells better than truth.
I ain't even gonna call it a fight, because it ain't. If Jake Paul's involved in it, it's a great acting job. You know Mike Tyson could have just knocked Jake Paul's face into the canvas, but he got paid to pull punches, otherwise he wouldn't have got paid. I'm pretty sure the same is going for Gervonta Davis. It's a quick money grab. Yeah, most of y'all gonna be suckers who tune in. It's just quick money grab. That's all I'm saying. Ain't gonna be no fight. I don't give a fuck how big Jake Paul is. He can't take one of them little mother tank punches. Yeah, tank move furniture. Move furniture. Catch that motherfucking move furniture. And Jake don't like his furniture move, so he gonna pay him not to hit him again. If you really want to show out Gervonta, Sign contract that you ain't gonna hit him, because if you hit him, you lose all the money. And then whoop that motherfucker's ass, put him to sleep, and get him out the boxing game once and for all. Just go up here.
That's all for today's video. Stay tuned and I'll see you in the next one.